What is going on, Military Cashflow family? Today's a great day, man. I'm having a good day. How about you, Mike? What's new in your world?
I'm doing well, man. I'm doing well. What's the day is? It's July 29th. So for anybody listening to this recording, I have now entered into the realm of loan origination. That's right, baby. That means if you need to get a loan in any of the 50 states, I always have an issue with that. I always say like 48 or 49. But anyway, any of these 50 states with an LLC, right? LLC financing, commercial financing, let me know. And if you're trying to buy something in your personal name, right? Maybe delayed financing or burn your personal name, VA, FHA, blah, blah, blah. In North and South Carolina, I got you.
You heard it.
That's probably the newest thing. Yeah, that's the newest thing for me, man. I'm really excited about it. But that's it for me right now. I'm kind of working on that. What about yourself, man? What you up to?
That's a big thing, man. That's it for me. That's a big thing, dude. Like you guys, I mean, just think about that for a second. So all you guys who have posted stuff online, like, hey, who do I get my commercial refinance through? Who do I, talk to about this first commercial property that I want to get? Who do I talk to? I'm living in North Carolina. I'm in the Bragg area. I'm in the, Fort Jackson, South Carolina area, and I'm looking for a VA home loan. I'm looking for a loan. You guys are hearing it right here. We got our very own Mike Glaspie is a mortgage loan officer, official, got the stamp. We're ready, and we're ready to do this. So please come reach out to us. And I know Mike will get you squared away. I mean, you I don't got to say anything about Mike. You guys already know about Mike. This guy's a monster. So yeah. That's awesome. But when it comes to me, as you guys see, I got a collared shirt on. I'm never in a collared shirt, right? So the reason why is I just left I had to leave a Helen for a while kind of early so I can jump on this podcast with you guys and make sure we get this dope ass content out for you. But other than that, I'm just kind of hanging out, man. I had a great day today. I got to link up with an old buddy of mine that we used to serve with the last time I was here at Fort Stewart, and we got to have some lunch, got to catch up, and he's with EXP. He's doing great things, shout out to Junior Matthews. I'll make sure I plug him or I'll give him a heads up. He's going to be mentioning this podcast. So he's doing some great things. He's closing on units and he's living right around the area, and he's just crushing the game. And every single time I hear those, man, I sit down and have lunch with a lot of my friends. I try to do, weekly networks with whoever I can in the area, right? And just literally talk real estate or just talk life, right? Every single time I hear that, man, I just love it. It gives me so much more motivation and so much more of a like, hey man, you're on the right path. You need those people in your life to see what they're doing and talk and associate with people like that, right? So that you can it just inspires you and keeps your focus basically, right? And you have other people holding you accountable, right? So it's just really cool, man. I really enjoyed myself in that little 1 hour lunch. And yeah, man, other than that, I'm just kind of hanging out with the family and, stacking this cash, getting ready for whatever comes next.
Whatever comes next. I love it, man. It leads me to my next point, which is Johhny Lynum. I hope I pronounced it right because I messed it up 3 times before this take. But this man is a beast, man. I really love the content that was delivered in this episode, specifically because his journey speaks to the consistency required to be an actual real estate investor, right? It speaks to the journey, the level of maturity that people have to develop over the years. When you hear his story, you're going to be like, damn, he went from purchasing one side of a duplex to all of a sudden purchasing 77% ownership of an 18-unit complex by not doing in a traditional 506 raising. He just said, hey, I'm gonna put in a promissory note, you feel me, and put in a second lien position, which is very unique, something new I've learned, right? But people hear that story and they're like, damn, this dude's lucky. Oh, damn, this dude's got it. Oh, he got it made. He did it, super unique. Nobody can ever mirror that. When in fact, it took him 15 years of investing while he was still active duty in the military, raising a family, being a father, being a husband, so forth and so on and so on. So I love his story because he dropped so many nuggets just about how this journey is really, from our perspective as we walk it. Yeah.
Perfect, man. I don't have nothing else to say, man. That was you pretty much nailed the head on put the nail on the head right there. I thought that was a great intro and a great synopsis of what happened in this. And I think the biggest thing is the biggest thing I want you guys to focus on, what you guys to hear out of this is the amount of discipline and what the true grind is. The true grind is that long period, right? This is a marathon. This is not a sprint. And understanding that, close one deal and a couple of years later, close another deal and a couple of years later, like that time in between transition, right? That's where he really won. And that's the true grind, staying focused and continuing to take action for whatever that means for you in that period. You might be going through a lull right now in yourself. Like, all right, I just purchased my first deal. Man, now I got to wait for a long time because I got to rebuild the cash, or I got to stabilize the whatever I just bought before, and it takes some time. That is the grind, right? The grind is not, I just bought the house and that's good. There's a lot of things that you can do in that true lull period, that true what I call the grind period. And we talk about that in this episode. And I thought that was the most important thing when it comes to this investing journey of ours, right? So without further ado, stay tuned. Here's the episode. What's going on, Military Cashflow family? Today we got a great guest, Johhny Lynum, in the house tonight. Hey, Johhny, thanks so much for coming on. Really appreciate that. Can you let us know a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your background, please?
Yeah, so Johhny Lynum, man, coming by way of Alabama, graduate of University of Alabama, did the ROTC thing, and then commissioned into the Air Force back in 2005. And as you guys already know, every military job isn't the same. With mine, I'm an acquisition officer, 6'2" Echo by trade, which kind of is more akin to business. You're dealing with contractors, you're going to PMRs and suits and things like that. So it's been a little bit different. Couple of deployments under my belt, and career broadened as an intel officer, couple of deployments, and just kind of rocking and rolling, almost in 16 years now.
16 years.
Nice. We got a little bit of synergy there. I didn't know you were an acquisitions officer. I'm a finance officer, so I know a little bit of terminology of the GFIBs and the WAFs and
Nice.
the cabinets and stuff. Yeah, so cool.
It's crazy to me how even within the military, you could be just one branch over, and the terminology and the acronyms are completely different. It's like, come on, man, we all wearing the same uniform. All right, so 16 years in the military. You said you came right out of college, right? Through ROTC.
Right.
Okay, so give us a little bit more about your upbringing. Were you born and raised in Alabama?
So born in Detroit, Michigan, stayed there for about 8 years, then moved to Alabama back where my dad was from. So grew up, dad was a pastor, and, he had his own business, his own entrepreneurial thing he was doing. He was appliance and television repair. And then my mom was a phlebotomist, worked in the hospital. And, so it was just me and my sister, and we, grew up kind of humble beginnings in the country, running dirt roads, barefoot type deal. And, I always excel academically because I knew that was my ticket to get out. My parents, lived in Detroit 20 years before they moved to Alabama. They're like, hey, you want to get out of here? You got to school is going to be the way. And so they pushed me, and I didn't rebel, and, it worked out pretty good, where I was able to secure more than enough scholarship money to go off to school, went to University of Alabama, had a blast, graduated, probably could have had a GPA a little bit higher, but, I lived, and I had a guaranteed job with the Air Force and had a full ride coming out of there. So it worked out pretty well, so I always like to tell people, like, I didn't have a silver spoon, as a lot of people do, but, I played the cards that I had, and, and just kind of used the tools, the benefits from going into the military, and just kind of use everything at my disposal to my advantage.
Yeah, I love that. And just one quick side note, I think you're the only person that went to University of Alabama that I've heard, or that have not heard, say "Roll Tide" at the end of Alabama. I think this is the first conversation ever. The first conversation. I don't even see any Alabama memorabilia back there or anything. It's crazy.
Well, you have to be subtle. You're talking to, you may have an investor from Clemson or an investor from Auburn, so you got to be agnostic.
He's gonna throw it in there real slick. He'd be like, "Roll Tide." Yeah. I'm like, okay, all right, we heard that.
I do love that. It sounds like you kind of, even at a young age, it sounds like you kind of, had that game plan of, hey, I want to get out. And it seems like you kind of had it mapped out a little bit. I mean, what influenced your decision to join the Army, since you said you were already academically gifted and you already had like the scholarships and everything like that? What influenced you to actually join the military? I think I said Army, I meant Air Force.
Yep, same difference. So funny you said that. That's a good segue because coming out of high school, I had a 4-year Army ROTC scholarship, and was going to the debt to have my interview and everything. My dad, who's a Vietnam Army veteran, he was like, "Hey, while you're there, talk to the Air Force. They're right across the hall. Talk to them while you're on campus." And I did, and they were like, "Hey, we can't guarantee you a scholarship now, but if you come here as an electrical engineer major, your spring semester, you'll be on scholarship." And so I was like, okay, I looked at it and, talking to a couple other people, mentors, and like, yeah, the Air Force is the way to go. And, I took them for their word. And sure enough, I got on scholarship, got a full ride Air Force scholarship that second semester, my freshman year. And, the rest is history. And I kind of, so it kind of worked out.
So I got a question, and I'm a little ignorant to the whole process when it comes to the ROTC section of it. Mm-hmm. But if was it the Army was offering anybody who was willing to sign, saying, "Hey, I'm committed," that they would get scholarships, and then the Air Force was only doing select branches, or how did that work out?
So the Air Force probably they were a little bit more selective. So the Army, I was number 3 out of my high school class, and I had a 93 on the ASVAB. So the Army was like, "Hey, you're our guy. You're good. We'll send you to ROTC." With that, even with the Air Force, they're like, "Yeah, you got electrical engineer major, you need to come on campus. And once you enroll, then we can offer you a scholarship." So it's a little bit different, but I put an offer in for Air Force, but was unsuccessful out of high school with it. So.
Okay. Oh, it's good to know. Yeah, I was unaware. And I mean, for our audience members looking to, take that path going in through college or whatever the case is, it's just good food for thought. So we might have to do a whole episode on that because I'm just curious now, but okay, good stuff, man. So what made you, let me ask you this. So I understand that you were looking for that way out, right? That way out from the humble beginnings, which most of us were. And what made you actually pursue the military? Was it your father's past experience, or was it something else kind of inside you that said, you know what, let me chase this down?
So really for me, it was the money. They're going to pay for school. And at the bottom line, it was, hey, they're going to pay the bills, get a stipend. I can go to school for free, and I'm going to have a job when I get out. Yep. And, so that was the route I took, after coming in, serving. 9/11 happened while I was in college. And, it's just the, just being in uniform. And then it kind of grew that it was something a little bit bigger than that. And it kind of grew on me after that fact, just besides the money, with just the service to the country and the mission that we had. But, and I think it's different for every individual on their reason for joining. And it kind of, with everything, we evolve and we change over time, and, our goals change, our ambitions change. And it's the same thing in real estate. You start in one place and you're probably going to end in a different place.
And you are so right. That's literally with everything. And I think that's a lot of people's main, I'm not gonna say main focus, but when they main reason for joining, a lot of it has to deal with education or schooling or money. Let's just be honest, right? A lot of times it's not typically, hey, it's purely to save, to serve my country. But just like you said, man, we evolve. And as we get into this, it's like, all right, well, now I'm starting to see a little bit something different. And you're like, all right, well, maybe I'll stay in a little bit longer. Maybe I'll do a little bit more. Mm-hmm. And you start to really feel that pride, right, within the military. Exactly. So that's a cool thing. And just like you said, it translates over to real estate, right? So you're 100% right. 100% right.
And you're honest. You're honest for saying that it was the money that was the first. Hey, I love it, man. Because I was the same way. I was like, how am I going to pay for this? Right. So boom, nothing wrong with that. So talk to us a little bit about, I guess, your trajectory in the military career to where then real estate started, I guess, even popping up in your mind. Like, where did that kind of come into play?
Yeah, so for me, first duty station was Warner Robins Air Logistics Center there, about an hour and a half south of Atlanta, and was living in an apartment. And a lieutenant buddy of mine that came, he was like, "Johhny, I got this duplex I found, man. I'm gonna buy a side. You need to buy the other side." And I was like, "Okay, cool." He was like, "Hey, it's gonna be like $300 cheaper than what we're paying in rent right now for the apartment." So I was like, "I'm game." So to look back on it, he's like, I jacked my credit up in college and coming out and everything. So really didn't have that financial literacy backing, even coming out with a degree, electrical engineer, minor in math and physics. It was like, okay, I still don't know how the economy works, real estate works, how credit works, and just the impact on things in that regard. And so took the leap of faith. I actually got a little bit over $300 back at close and no money down, used my VA benefit. And it was like a $65,000 property, 1,000 square foot, 2 bedroom, 2 bath. And that kind of set the mold for me. It's like, okay, they're going to pay me to take this house and it's going to save me $300 a month. And it's way less than my BAH. I'm like, okay, this is pretty cool. I need to look more into this. And that kind of just started the journey for me in real estate. From there, and then just as, PCS in 2010, about 4 years later, turning into a landlord by default with leaving the area. I still own that house to this day. And, the next one found a foreclosure. I had learned about foreclosures, learned about subject to different strategies, going to a Macon RIA, their real estate investor association that was there, and just kind of learned the game because it wasn't taught in school, still not taught in school. And from there, it's just like, okay, I'm looking for foreclosures. I can use my VA again. 3 years later, PCS again, used by another foreclosure, using my VA loan again, because I moved to the DC area and you get that bump in your entitlement for just being in a high price market. And so I was able to slide in a third house, all using my VA loan and no money down.
Laying out the blueprints, man. Laying out the blueprints. I love it. Hey, so I think that's so crazy. And I know every now and again we talk about it on the show, but I really think it's crazy how, you were an electrical engineer and math major basically, right? And you said they don't teach this in college, right? Like for some reason we have this idea about us. At least I did when I was little. A lot of the people around me, I kind of came from humble beginnings as well. Not many people in my family went to college or anything, but it was always go to college and you'll be successful. Go to college and you'll be successful, right? But it's just mind-boggling to me that they teach nothing at all about personal finance, and it's a journey that you have to embark on your own. Like after you're in so much, well, in most people's situation, you're in so much debt. It's just mind-boggling. What are your thoughts about that? Like, I mean, you said you kind of had to figure that out on your own. How do you think your situation maybe have changed had it been taught in school? And then just what are your overall thoughts on that in general?
Well, I think it definitely would have been changed. And, you can't fault your parents. They do the best they can. They give you the knowledge they know. And it's left up to you to have that grind and determination to go seek out the rest. And I think what the platform you guys have built is changing the course of that now. You're educating people. It's the proliferation of information across the internet. Now you don't necessarily need a formal education or formal university certificate to say, hey, this is how you learn this stuff. That you pick it up from just learning from experts that's doing it and implementing these strategies right now. So, it definitely would have been different to know about stocks, know how to evaluate a company, know about a financial statement, know how to generate your own personal financial statement, those kind of things. But, I look back, I would never want to change the journey. It's turned me into the man that I am, the investor that I am, the husband, father, all that good stuff. And now it's like, I just wrote a book about it. The same thing, real estate success strategies, what they forgot to teach you in school. Because it's at the core of this problem. And I think that the problem is there on purpose and nobody's trying to solve the problem because these schools were created to produce workers, to work as employees. And so that's how it was built. And so they're not necessarily incentivized to change and make it different.
I love it. Yeah.
We got somebody preaching, baby. We got somebody preaching. And I love that plug for the book, man. So we're going to make sure that we share that book in the show notes. It's on pre-order now, I believe, right? But hopefully when this comes out, it's live. But man, you're dropping nuggets upon nuggets upon nuggets, man. You're exactly right. People do not understand that our education system was built and was installed to create employees. If you want to be successful outside of the norm of what society tells you, you have to do your own research, man.
Yes.
And I think you're a perfect example of that, because if anybody told me that they were an electrical engineer major with a math minor, in my mind, accountant. You good with money because you're good with numbers, right? You know what I'm saying? But you're a perfect example to say, hey, even when I know all the math in the world, I still didn't know finance. So it's got to show you, man, you got to put on extra. So I love that, man. I really do. And I applaud you for that. And I appreciate you dropping that knowledge. Now I got to back up a little bit because I got a question for you.
Okay.
Because here's the thing. A lot of people hear these things. You say duplex. I got to go back to real estate. I'm sorry. I have to because it just stuck with me. But it says duplex. One side I'm going to buy. The other side you have to buy. And it's going to, you pay to save, right?
Right.
But what in your mind, when we hear duplex, we typically hear, hey, I'm going to be the sole owner of two properties, of 2 doors, right? And your mind, your situation, walk us through how it was presented to you and how you understood it at that time, because it's now you guys are owning, 1 door under 1 building.
Right. And and that was the way. So it was presented, and how they had it listed. It was listed as 2 properties for sale. It was the builder that had kept it, I think, for like 2 years. He was looking to liquidate to sell more. So this is 06. He's trying to build more and more, leading up into 08. I don't know how all that worked out for Buzz, but hopefully he came out pretty good. I never followed up on that. So he had he had both of the properties listed separately, even though it shared a roof, 2 separate doors and everything. And in just 1 property. And, looking back, was like, man, he should have just bought both sides, or, looking back on it. But, now that I know those things, that, hey, you can qualify with a VA loan and buy a duplex and buy both sides. So that's something that, I didn't necessarily know at that time, but it really was presented. It was like, hey, they're right beside each other on the market. He's like, you might as well buy the other one. And I really think Nick, and we're still good friends till today, for sharing that with me, because he didn't have to. He was the one looking out like, hey, I'm looking to buy a house in this area, and I was just, I was in my apartment, got my new job. I'm trying to, get my rank and stuff and do good and at my job, be a good employee and, and really just kind of push the status quo. But thankfully, we had that good rapport. He reached out, was like, hey, let's do this. And I was at least willing enough to listen and look at it and make a good business decision.
Excellent. Hey, so we transition into to the beginnings of real estate, right? Now, I mean, I have an idea of where you're at right now because I follow you on Instagram. If you're not following Johhny on Instagram, you need to do so. He puts out some really dope content, and he's always sharing what he's doing. I think he just put out something about like aerial view of a roof or something like that, right?
Yep.
So it's always good stuff. But from understanding those beginnings, right? You buy 1 side of a duplex to where you are now. Can you walk us through some of that? And like, I'm assuming there was some mindset shifts. I'm assuming there was some family in there, family additions, maybe, because you mentioned kids. Like, how does all that work? Because I'm really interested in how you made that transition to scaling larger, right? And then also doing that while managing a family, because that is very hard. A lot of times we bring some people on the show that they might not have families, right? And trying to figure out how to make that transition. They're trying to figure out themselves. And our listeners are doing the same thing. So can you please help us out with that?
For sure. And I think it really went from the duplex to, okay, I got the VA loan, I got entitlement, I can do it again. So let me find a foreclosure. So went that avenue, had just got married. We got our first house, just marital bliss, no kids, and just loving it. And, even before that, it took this retired chief who had went to Intel school, was staying with a couple buddies, but they had PCS to Langley Air Force Base all together, had got married en route. The wife ain't got there yet. So I'm living with them, dude on the couch, hanging out with my lieutenants, and I'm a captain. And, the neighbor beside me, I'll never forget, he had a black Corvette and he had a black Porsche, retired guy. And he had real estate. And I was saying, yeah, if you know Hampton and Newport News, they got the Peninsula Town Center. It had just been built kind of around 2011. And I was about to get an apartment loft paying like $1,750 a month rent and stay up top. Knew about real estate, but I didn't know at that time that I still had entitlement until I told him, like, we were talking. I was like, he's like, why won't you just buy a house? He was like, you're going to pay $50,000 over 3 years to somebody for rent, and you can just have your own place and then rent it out to somebody else coming in. And I was like, you're right. And I was like, well, I already bought a place. He's like, you still got entitlement. And so he planted that seed. Like, okay. And I went and looked, like, sure enough, the loan officer told me, yeah, you can get up to, I think it was like $290. And I bought a HUD foreclosure for $208 and kept it moving. But, that seed was planted. And then after that, I knew about entitlement more. So in 2013, we found another one, just slid in, got a condo in the Northern Virginia area. And, we had a couple kids at that point. And after that, like the next year, after our, kind of come back from deployment, we bought our first true rental property in Birmingham, Alabama. And just kind of learned virtual, was self-managing, didn't really look at the CapEx when I bought it for $25K. The tenant moved out like 6 months later, had to drop $10K in it. And it was like, yeah, it was renting for $750 on Section 8. It was good. But when they moved out, it was like, oh, yeah, I should have been.
My bad. Hold on. We got to pause. How much you pay for that thing?
$25K.
Damn, that's what I thought I heard. $25,000?
$25,000. It's probably still worth $25,000 today.
But did you hear the cash flow?
But
Did you
it's
hear the
rented
cash
for
flow?
probably
Yeah.
it's rented for probably $850. It's a cash flow play. So that's the big thing. It cash flows, but you're not going to necessarily get the appreciation long term.
Yeah. I love it though, because I mean, let's be honest. Like for all the real estate investors out there that are thinking, oh man, I want to buy a $25,000 property. Well, first off, you got to back up and you got to realize what's your strategy, right? Yes. And does that property that you're looking for actually help you meet your objective? You were looking for cash flow, and you're right. It's gonna work all day for cash flow. But, and I'm just assuming, but tell me, am I right? You probably have more maintenance issues on this property than you would a Class A. Am I right? Okay.
100%.
You may or you may not have some tenant issues with this property that you may not have on others, right? So it's like you have to choose your battles. But nonetheless, man, that's the hell of a deal for you to come out. And then I want to, again, you hit on something key that I think our audience needs to understand. And we mention this a lot, but sometimes it doesn't register. You said you had already purchased a home with your VA, and then your buddy came around or your neighbor came around and said, hey, guess what? You got more entitlement. You can do it again.
Yes.
And you can keep doing it again and again until you run out of your entitlement, guys. And there's some stipulations to it. We're not going to talk about that right now. But that is something that most people miss. And I always love to preach about the, hey, how do you get 12 units in 3 years with no money down? You buy a quad 1 year, quad the next year, all with the VA loan, right? So you are doing that in your own fashion. So that's a beautiful thing, man. Beautiful thing.
For sure. And it worked out. We bought another house. We, same contractor that was working with that one. We paid $6,400 for it on the auction and put 10 in it and, painted it, and we rented it out for $725.
You got to stop again, man. Well, how much did you pay?
Come on, man. $6,400, auction.com. Well, no, this was Hubzoo. It wasn't auction.com. It was Hubzoo. And, it was just, just a house there, regular house that somebody lived in 2 years. I was like, we can buy this. Somebody lived in here 2 years ago. There's a direct TV dish on the house. So I'm like, it can't be that bad. And we put the money in it and, and got it rented out. And, but we cashed out of those and started fixing and flipping in 2015. We sold both of those, after the one moved out, we had to put 10K in. I was like, yeah, I'm not buying these old houses anymore. And, we found that we got our first flip here in Alexandria, Virginia. And that was a whole teaching moment as well, too, just with hard money and knowing how interest is computed versus just flat, simple interest versus, interest that's computed for each day that you have the loan. I learned that the hard way with, with the first deal, we kind of underran on what our estimate was for construction, and our hard money lender made a little bit more money than we did. But we learned a heck of a lot. That's been my most extensive rehab across over 24 fix and flips projects, that we've done over the years. So it's, it is what it is. And now, but all this, man, I'll tell you, no formal mentors, no training, and just trying to podcast and, and figure it out on your own, go to a couple of meetups. And looking back now, what I know with Mastermind and just how much I've been able to grow my net worth in just a year from just joining mastermind groups and networking with the right people. It's like, man, I should have been doing this 5-6 years ago. It's no telling where we could have been.
Now, I want to pause you real quick before we go deeper into flipping, and then also want to talk about Jerome Meyers and Mid-Atlantic Conference. I believe you're speaking on as well. Yep. But pausing and going back to the philosophy and your mindset switch, you're like, hey, I don't want to deal with these anymore, because there's pretty much two schools of thought when it comes to like investing. I guess there's a middle ground too, but on the opposite extremes, there's people that invest for straight cash flow plays, right? And those are your places like Birmingham, Watertown, New York is a very, very good cash flow place. There's like a lot of the places in the Rust Belt area are very, very good cash flow places. And then there's the investors that are investing for like heavy appreciation, where they're not going to see much returns. They're looking at like, less than 1% returns, but they're okay with that because they know they're in hot markets and it will appreciate over time. Right. So can you walk us through that mental shift, right? Why you chose to get out of that type of investing. Right. And then, let's just focus with that. Where was that mental shift at?
Yeah. So the biggest mental shift for me was we can do the fix and flips and generate more capital to buy more rental properties. And so for me, it was trading those two to be able to have the capital to put the down payment onto a fix and flip project and to have the money to for the carrying cost and for the renovation cost. And so with me, it was like, okay, we can sell these houses, we can liquidate, we can put back 40K in our pockets or whatever it may be after we pay everything off. And then from there, it was like, hey, we can do the fix and flip. Was managing projects, just had saved the government over $10 million negotiating like a multi-$100 million contract. And I was like, you know what? My paycheck's the same. I'm like, I need to get out here. I can do this myself. I'm managing contractors on the software development side. I can manage contractors on a home renovation project too. And so I bet it on myself. The wife was like, hey, we're going to do this. We're going to do it together. And, she had 100% faith and trust in me and in the good Lord. And, we took off on the journey together, and it just kind of went in full steam ahead to get it done, because I knew I could do it. I had the faith and confidence, had been in, in the RIA meetings. And I was like, these people are no different than me. They don't even have an education and they're doing this stuff. So, and I'm just sitting here, I work 8 hours a day. I'm getting off at 5 o'clock and I'm just sitting here going home, looking at fantasy football, twiddling my thumbs. I'm like, I can do more. And so that's what got me off the couch and kind of was like, hey, let's go get it.
I love that direct translation from your job, from acquisitions, right, and managing contractors, right, to managing contractors in the real world for yourself. If you guys don't know, like acquisitions officers, finance officers, we deal with like multi-million dollar budgets and contracts for the Army, right? You take that and you those same exact skill sets, they apply to real life. This is a prime example of how you can take something that you're doing for your W-2 income, right, and put that into your passion project or your wealth building journey, right? I think there's a lot of relatable skills there, and I really like you. I really love that you made that transition for us.
And I challenge everybody out there right now. I don't care what your job is or what your profession is. I challenge you to find the correlation. I guarantee you something that you're doing right now translates over to real estate or to business or entrepreneurship. On the acquisition side, when you're dealing with multi-millions, we say money, that might be an easier correlation, but hey, it could be maybe it's the systematizing you do. I don't care if you at McDonald's and you're like, first is the bread, then it's the meat, then it's that's an assembly line, baby. Let's do that with real estate, right? Let's do that with construction. So that's definitely there. And I also want to highlight the fact that you said that you had done all of these different events, right? To build up your experience, build up your knowledge before you were confident. And for some people, they hear your path and they're like, damn, that was fast. Damn, that happened so quick. But you said you bought your first one in 2006 and you started flipping in 2015.
Right.
Right. Let's look at the numbers, right? That's 9 years. So you put in the work, you put in the time, you put in the energy to learn this craft before you even changed your strategy. So talk to us about what that journey was like. Did you ever have ups and downs during those 9 years? What was that final catalyst for you to say, you know what? Okay, now I'm done with this. I want to focus on something else.
And it really, the first 5 years after having that one rental property, and then, I was really honed in on my job, when I left my first duty station, I career broadened into Intel. And so was the new kid on the block and just I was all in on that, soon after I got there, 6 months later, I deployed. And so really it was an afterthought, we had got the foreclosure. So we had 2 houses at that point. And so it really, I wasn't active or anything like that. And then like the next year after getting back home, having a kid, it was like, okay, let me get back into real estate, reading the books and everything. And that's when we started getting a rental here. And then the next year, picking up the $6,000 house and going from there. But, really it was just after that and just being in the DC area. And I'm seeing these guys that's, wholesaling, doing these big deals and, selling houses, making $70,000, $80,000 profit. And I'm like, okay, we're making, $300-$400 cash flow a month. I'm like, okay, let's put this to the side. Let's generate some real revenue, some real cash in the marketplace. And then we can look at, scaling up. And so that was really my calculus was like, okay, it's time to go bigger now. It was like the good cash flow, for us where we are with numbers wise, but I saw the potential on the other side by generating more income with the fix and flip avenue compared to just buying the cheap rentals and just wait long-term, generating passive income.
But it's all for a purpose though, right? I imagine so you're doing this until, at some point we're going to have a correction in the real estate market. And I'm sure you're very aware of that and you're probably already planning for that. So all the flipping, it seems like you went from buy and hold investing, right, to flipping, right, for cash flow, for capital build, right?
Right.
And all that is for
Now multifamily. You know, that's for me, it's multifamily. You know, so after we did the first one in Alexandria, it was like, okay, this is way too much for us. The entry cost for everything was higher to buy the house, the renovations and everything. So we went to Birmingham where my wife was from. So next we go buy a house for $55,000 and we put 35 in it and sell it for 140. And, you know, so the numbers were considerably less. The risk was a whole lot less. And so I literally drove 10 hours, went to Birmingham, got quotes all over the weekend, and I built my team up, you know, with my contractors to get the job done, you know, taking the experience we had in Virginia with the first one, and had a really reliable realtor and family member that would go by, check the work before I would pay people. And, you know, and I made it work. And we did that for almost 2 years, just one project, then find another one. And we really didn't take off until 2019 after Hurricane Michael hit Panama City. I had recently got back from a deployment. 3 weeks later, the hurricane hit. Then 5 days later, my third child was born, and we were displaced for 6 months. And for me, I had put the business on steroids while I was in Kuwait those 6 months. I had built the business up, had branded the Operation Restore, had my Carrot website, was sending direct mail. You know, I was ready to hit the ground running in Panama City. And boom, 3 weeks later after I get home, you know, the hurricane, Category 5 hurricane wipes us off the map. And for me, I thought it was a setback, but it, you know, looking back on it now, it was a setup. You know, I had put all this work in and everything, and now you had you actually had thousands of dilapidated houses damaged from the hurricane. You had motivated sellers who were getting insurance money and didn't want to come back to the house, that wanted to just sell it as is and walk away and just start over, whether they're buying a new house in the area or just moving to a whole new area, a new city. And so, you know, initially I thought it was a setback, but now it's like, okay, boom, we know exactly what to do. Let's put it to work. You know, it was a 6-month delay from when I wanted to get started, but it, you know, that setback was a setup, and we just kind of hit the ground running in 2019 and then 2020.
That's crazy. And it's crazy how that happens too. As you prepare yourself, regardless of what is going on, even if we always talk about like taking action, right? And that comes in many different forms. It doesn't mean I had to buy a house today. That's the only form of taking action, right? You talked about you were in Kuwait, you were setting up your team, you were networking, you were focusing, you were already doing the branding, you were already sending those yellow letters out the entire time. And then something traumatic happens, right? Something, you know, we don't think is going to happen, just natural disaster. We can't control that, right? And we're looking at that, man, that's a setback. But out of setbacks, sometimes opportunities present themselves, and you were prepared for it because you had been doing all the prep work on the other side of it, right? So that's crazy. I think that's a very like key point of emphasis. A lot of times we sit stagnant because we're like, man, I don't have the money right now. I don't, you know, my credit's not that great. Something else is, you know, happening in our lives, right? But we can take that opportunity and really learn from it and capitalize on it. My credit's not good. My money's not right. Well, what can I be doing? I can be networking. I can be building out other things that doesn't cost money, right? So these are kind of the things. It's like it says on your background, the hustle, the grind, the execution, man. That's what it's all about, man. I love it.
And I will say this. This is that perfect example where they say luck is when preparation meets opportunity, right? You was busting your ass. And this is what people don't understand. People, you know, and not our listeners. Our listeners know the grind, right? But people in the world, they'll sit there and they will observe somebody's success and they'll say, man, that person is so lucky. Oh, man, I wish. Oh, if I was there, I'd have done this. Nah, what you didn't see was years of grinding, years of studying, years of networking, like Dan was talking about, when all of a sudden the opportunity hit. And let's be honest, that wasn't an ideal scenario for most people. But what you were able to do was you were able to look at a negative scenario and find that silver lining. And I guarantee you, by you going in there and purchasing some of those properties, you actually helped some of those owners out. And that's what people, they miss that correlation. A good investor is a problem solver. And that's what you were doing for them. And I love that, man. So now that you're in multifamily, talk to us about that jump. Now let's talk about multifamily specifically. What's kind of your niche? What are you looking for? What's kind of your goals and aspirations with multifamily?
Yeah, so on the multifamily front, 20 to 60, kind of the mom and pop owner, self manager is kind of our sweet spot right now. My goal, 2 to 3 a year. I got about 4 years left before I'll be eligible for retirement. Then looking at the 100 plus, the big deals where you on-site property management. But for just working directly with the seller, when I looked at the avatar with how we did our deal and just everything from the seller, just who they were, baby boomers, near retirement, owned other businesses, weren't neglected, not necessarily neglected the property, but it wasn't their priority. And you could tell deferred maintenance and insurance claim that had been going on for a year and a half. And so there was the underlying motivation for them when we stumbled across the property. And, and I'll tell you, I always thought apartments were just, the price tag on them that's out there. I wasn't ready for that. But I went to a multifamily conference in Orlando, October 2019. It changed my mindset, changed my whole mindset, to the point where is that I didn't want to spend $30,000 on their education program. But I was like, okay, I understand enough about it. I see it. And 45 days later, I submitted my first LOI on this 18 unit that we bought. That I stumbled across getting ready for appraisal. I went and looked at the price of this commercial lot that was listed for sale behind me. And I found this 18 unit that had been sitting on the market for over 90 days. And so I reached out to the broker. It was listed at 1.35 million and I offered him $1 million. And it took them a while. Like a month later, I got a chance to walk it with the broker. And then we eventually split. They wanted to be at 1.1. The broker told me I came in at $1 million. And so we ended up splitting the difference about 45 days later, early March, kind of right when COVID was about to start kicking off. We got under contract and it took us about 3 months to close. But it was a heck of a process to go through from getting a syndication attorney kind of halfway through and, bringing on a GP partner of mine. And with us, we didn't do a GP LP traditional split, that we just raised a 2-year promissory note and brought investors on. And so we raised about 95,000 of the 210 that was due for the down payment as just a second position lien that my credit union was fine with. And so we just gave them 7% annual cash on cash return, going to kick in about 20,000 at the refinance milestone in 2 years. And so it'll work out to be about a 17% IRR for those across each year for them. And we walked away with all the equity for the deal. And, and that was all from just the book, I had picked up the book at the conference from this attorney that presented, Kim Taylor, and she's like, how to legally raise, money for private capital. And she had a section in there about promissory notes as an option and, preserving the equity. And I was like, okay. I was ignorant enough to like, okay, that sounds good to me. I'm gonna do that. And it was tough raising the money, initially. And then my mastermind met a good partner of mine, wanted to come in and get a GP experience, and he helped raise a portion of it, and we got it done.
God, man, I've never heard of that. And I do syndications and all sorts of stuff, but I've never heard of that, man. And what I have to commend is that, I honestly think is individuals like yourself who bootstrap, right? Who don't come from a background of a family of investors where you had to learn it yourself. You got creative. That is creative, my man. I love it. And the fact that you just put in offers and you say, you know what, I used the conference for what it was. The conference was that tool or that an event to help me open my mindset, right? I didn't have to fork out the $30, $15, $20,000 on the back end, but it opened up my mindset and I did my own research. And went out there 45 days later and got that, man. I love that, man. That's intense. That hopefully the audience picked up on that, man. It's creativity and never saying just, no, or there's only one way. I love it. And I gotta say, 2019 was a hell of a year for conferences, man. That's how me and Dan met. We met at a conference too.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm met at that Grant Cardone. I'm assuming yours was a Jake and Gino. That's the only one I know that's in Orlando for sure.
Yep, that's exactly it.
We had Jake and Gino on the show. Like they're one of the earlier episodes. So yeah, man, let's talk about conferences, right? So you're about to be a guest speaker on a conference, a Mid-Atlantic conference. Yeah. That's what one of our guest friends, Jerome Meyers, he's also been on the show a while ago. He's one of the earlier episodes. So tell us about that, man. So we started from 15 years ago. It's about 15 years ago, right?
Yep.
About 15 years ago in that first one side of a duplex, right? all the way to now. We got multifamily units. We're talking about doing million dollar deals, right? And now we're up. Now we're truly teaching other people at conferences, right? I mean, just think about that for a second. We're talking about a 15-year span of time. It sounds really quick when we're saying it like this, right? But the focus and like the hustle and grind and execution, I'm gonna keep saying that because I keep seeing it in the background there. But that you had to keep during that entire 15-year process is phenomenal, and that's what got you to this point. Now, how can you tell us about the conference? Tell us about the conference, what you're going to be speaking about.
Most definitely. And I think that at the same time, all that, still serving active duty and still being, a husband and father,
Big facts.
all doing the same thing.
Yes.
And, so that's the challenge. But that's why that's why you have to lean on your networking system, and you can do it. Because we all, whether you're, Mark Zuckerberg or Johhny Lynum, we all still got 24 hours in a day, and you just got to do what you got to do and figure it out. But the conference, man, the conference is a blessing, with all of the career and everything. And I've always been one to want to give back, whether it's, working with the BICOB organization in Atlanta last year, with just working with upper rising teens that's looking to go to college, and just sharing my experiences, from the military, just trying to teach leadership, communication skills, how to interview well for a job, just basic stuff. Whether you go to college or not, you need to know this stuff to just be to be successful at anything in life, to be able to just hold a conversation with somebody. So just teaching those intangibles to people, and then talking about real estate as well too. So, just giving back has always been a part, because there were so many people that poured out into me to be where I'm at today. And, so it's just an honor to attend the conference. We talk about, October 18, I was, my first multifamily conference, and here I'm talking at a multifamily conference a little bit less than 2 years later. And it's truly a humbling experience just to share my journey and how I went through with my opportunity that was presented, and just how we were creative with the financing, I didn't even talk about the assignment of benefits that we actually took over the insurance claim. And it took a year, but we got the check. So we ended up getting $50,000 to go back to rebuild 4 units, as well as we got $25,000 in concessions from the seller at closing. So all that. And so just really talking about that process with the multifamily unit, I walked away with 77% ownership equity in the deal. I had my other GP buddy, he had 18 that raised a portion of money. And I gave one of my college buddies that came in with me, gave him 5% ownership. And we got the deal done. And, and just, for what I'm going to tell them at the conference, I'm going to talk about the deal. But my situation, they won't do that. They're not going to do that deal. They should be doing a deal bigger than my deal. But I'm going to give them the intangibles on how to go off and do their own deal. Because that's everybody's experience is going to be separate. But there are some pieces to it for the hustle, the grind, being able to grab the knowledge and know how to evaluate a deal, to underwrite a deal. Whereas that when opportunities present themselves, you're able to take advantage of them. And so that's the thing that, when I get on the stage, just encourage people is wherever you are today, you already have what it takes to be successful in multifamily. You just don't know it yet, and you haven't figured out how to apply it in the right situation.
Yeah. And I got to say, man, it's, first off, again, I got to commend you, man. As you achieve success, you give back. Right? You're sharing your story, and you're making sure that you're bringing people along with you. That, to me, I think is extremely important in raising us up as a people. You know what I mean? Like there's a large income gap. There really is. And this is our way of saying, hey, look, guys, there's another avenue if you're ready to listen. And I want to highlight the fact that you said, hey, look, I bought this bad boy in 2019 or 2018. I might have messed it up. 2019, you bought your first one. And 2 years later, you're now speaking at a conference. That shows that all that work and energy you put in for 10, 15 years, you know what I'm saying, is finally coming to fruition. It's not a quick hustle. So many people think real estate's a quick buck. It's not, right? But as you grind and as you learn and as you mature over the years, you're now sharing your story, man. That's how it needs to be done. That's how it needs to be. And so for everybody out there who's starting to see their success, and I don't care if it's one house or if it's one apartment, whatever your success is, man, start sharing that story. I love it, man. Good stuff.
That's great, man. And it sounds like when we keep talking about grind, right? And about like the grind is not always, hey, I got to buy a house right now. Just for the audience purpose, just for, audience sake, right? To kind of visualize this about the time in between, because I think I'm probably in that space right now. I'm assuming there's a couple of years that go by before you even acquire another property during that 10-15 year process. So just really, really quick, like, all right, I acquired one unit 15 years ago. Then next unit, what was that? Just a quick, like.
Yeah. So with me, I leveraged my VA loan. It was PCS move. So 06 was the first one. Then January 2011 was the second one. And then July of 2013 was the third one. And after that third one was when we picked up, across the next year and a half, we picked up those two in Birmingham. And then we started to flip it in 2015 when we sold those two and, and went all in on that. So, almost 9 years and, I only picked up like 4 properties.
So there's inactivity. There's a lot of It's not like inactivity, like I'm just not doing anything at all, but that is the grind.
Yep.
That is the true grind, because that's what's going to tell if you're really focused on this and if you're really about this, right? That's going to really determine your success, what you do in that lull period, whether you're networking, whether you're saving your money, whether you're like what you're doing in that period. That is the grind. And I just wanted to touch on that just a second ago.
That's a good point. And I'll tell you during that point too, I was all in on the military. I was looking like, okay, 06 and seeing where things gonna go, and and so I knew about it, but it was an afterthought, and I wasn't hungry when it came to real estate like that. I had got content, was having a really good success at my job. It was like, okay, I can see this going longer, and then it finally hit me like, okay, I'm saving all this money and everything, and the different new general officer comes in, his priority on what he thinks is important is different. It's like, okay, well, I don't control my destiny at all. I'm sitting here fooling myself. I'm like, let's go back over and look at these houses again and see, and kind of, and put the business together. And so that's how it goes. But I tell people, if you got one house, the only thing that's holding you back now is yourself. There's so much out here for teachers and mastermind groups and networking that you can scale up quick, because you can get the knowledge. You don't have to make the mistakes or drag it out like in the past when you didn't know, because now you can get the insight and the information and kind of put the systems in place and kind of hit the go fast button and hit it safely without, wrecking and, and just kind of going off the deep end with it, that you can do it and be successful just because there's so much mentorship available out here. And, so I encourage people that you just got to figure out that you're going to do it and just go do it, because it's out here to be done.
Absolutely, man. It sure is. You got plenty of options out there. You just got to take action, period.
And it comes in different forms.
Absolutely.
Hey, so you're dropping nuggets. You're dropping a lot of knowledge, right? And I love everything that you described. And we kind of really kind of focused on that, on that transition periods and those mindset shifts, and also focusing on, hey, the length of time, how this is a marathon and not a sprint, right? So, but if there was one piece of advice that you could give to a service member out there, just one piece of advice that you could give to a service member out there, what would that what would that advice be?
Take action. Bottom line, that's the number one trait principle. It was chapter 4 of my book was like, hey, you got to take action. You got the information. If you're watching this, then you're already ahead of the game. You know what you need to be doing. And so it's just a matter of, everybody's scared. Everybody has fear. But the thing is, I think it's, Steve Harvey said, you got to take the leap off the cliff and build your parachute while you're falling, baby. You got to go all in, and you got to have some faith along the way to have faith in yourself that if you don't know it, you know who to go ask to know. And that's where your network comes in. So I think just take action and use your VA loan. Use your VA loan benefits. Like you said, that whole play on the duplex, triplex, quadplex, do it. You can easily do it.
Yeah, and then 3 years, man, you have more than 90% of Americans right there. Boom, 90% of the population. So I'm also going to caveat that and say, hey, take action. I got to say caveat because it's a Military Cashflow channel. Hey, take action and buy this man's book. And just a quick little, selfless plug here, shameless plug. What can they expect when they do buy your book? What kind of content do you cover?
So we start off with the problem in America. We talked a little bit about it today, just where is that they don't teach this stuff in school. In the second chapter, I kind of go, hey, what's today's millionaire look like? 88% of today's millionaires are first generation millionaires. So I think it was Fidelity did the study. And, so it's doable. People out here grinding, they're not inheriting all this money. They're out here making it happen. And, from there, talk about the law of the first deal, that it's been said that once you do your first deal, it becomes a whole lot easier, that success follows success, that once you do that, you'll be in a good place. Take action, network, look at masterminds. Networking is just critical to your success. And then we get into the strategies where the rubber meets the road, talking about how to finance deals. We go into wholesaling, single family, fix and flip strategies, buying whole rentals, apartments. And at the same time, I'm talking about my experiences, but I'm talking about my network and all these other investors. So I got stories in there from Dave Seymour, who was the star on A&E's Flipping Boston, and just, how he came in, immigrated to the US. And, he was working at one point, working over 120 hours a week, working 3 jobs as a firefighter, a contractor, and then picking up a side job before he went all in on real estate. And now he's got $100 million private equity fund, buying multifamily on the Gulf Coast. So I sat down with Vinny, who's got,
Vinny smiling.
Yes, exactly. So we sat down with Vinny, just honored to hear his humble story. Dude came here with $7 in his name to go to Georgetown to get his master's degree, and was in the summertime while he was getting his master's, he's selling books down in Atlanta, 12-hour days out in the sun selling books during the summertime, just grinding. And, and just his story, sat down, talked with Rod Khleif as well, got some nuggets from him. And just then on the flip side, just other ordinary, guys, my mastermind group, other investors I know in the DC area, from Florida that I've met, just sharing their stories with how they're doing, fixing flips or apartment investing, the mindset. Billy Keel, who's investing from Spain, that's investing back here in the United States. And so just their story, Jerome Meyers, and how he got started and left corporate America, John Kasman. So it's just a host of good, solid investors, everyday people that have been successful and just kind of flipped the script. And, they had the tenacity and the grit to make it happen. And a lot of these people left successful corporate jobs to bet on themselves and go into real estate just to get that time freedom back. And so I think people will be blessed if they're looking to take action and they enjoy stories of other entrepreneurs and they're looking to just kind of figure out what can they do in real estate. Then I think they'll like the book.
Man.
Hey, that link will be down below for sure. All the notes and well, go ahead, Mike. I think you were going to ask another question.
Yeah, I'm going to ask the next question. So now, if they can find that book, they're looking for it, man. Where can they find that book, and more importantly, where can they find you? How can they get in contact with you?
Yeah, so right now, depending on when this drops, we're doing the pre-sale now through August 24. We'll do the 30-day pre-sale. But after that, we'll have the link on my website, JohnnyLynum.com, where they can kind of read about the book, the YouTube videos I have, and then also just some of our syndication pieces and private equity opportunities that we have for investors. So it's all right there, JohnnyLynum.com.
Amazing. That's amazing. Hey, so all those links will be down below. If make sure you reach out to Johhny, make sure you pick up the pre-sale book. I'll go ahead and pick that up as well. It'll go well with my Elite Investor book up there by Mr. Mike Glaspie as well. So I'll pick that up. And then if you guys are in the air, what are you guys going to still do the in-person conference? I know like COVID's going crazy right now and stuff with the whole Delta variant.
Virtual.
Okay. I wasn't sure.
Yeah, which looks to be a wise decision.
Yeah. Okay. I think because the last one was personal or was in person, right? Like I think the last
one was. I think the last one it was virtual. We had one this spring too. I went to the one this spring that was really good. Okay.
But yeah, all the links will be down below. Make sure you link in with Mr. Johhny Lynum. He's putting out great content. Follow him on Instagram. Follow him on the go to JohnnyLynum.com and find all the content. Again, we really appreciate you coming on. Any last words?
No last words, man. I think you guys always hit it with, what people can do to take action. The stories are great, but at the end of the day, what can the listeners take home with them to kind of change their life? And like I like to say, be the best CEO of their last name. That you guys just take action, have faith in yourself. You guys give great content. Reach out to them, reach out to me. We're all here to help you. We're your biggest cheerleaders. And I think it's just, hey, enjoy the journey, embrace the process. Don't rush it, and just enjoy every day, every step, every moment, because life is short. It's not promised, and you can't wait to work 30, 40 years and then want to live at your 65, because it's not guaranteed. And so that's the last thing that I'll just say to everybody. Just thank you guys for the opportunity.
Excellent.
Man.
Hey man, it's been great. Love the nuggets you dropped. We'll definitely stay in contact. And with that said, this is Dan Wynn
And Mike Glaspie
signing off.
Thanks, guys.